Earlier in the lesson, these pupils used key words, which were introduced in the starter, to analyse the effects achieved in a Henry Rousseau painting. These key words were then utilised by the pupils in their own work, a tropical landscape, using mixed media.
Okay, Year 7, right, I'd like you to stop what you're doing, please. Okay, I know we haven't finished our pieces of work, and that's fine, because as we usually do, we're going to be working on this for the next couple of weeks anyway. So it's good that we've got these started, and I'm glad to see that you've been referring to the things that we've already started talking about at the beginning of the lesson. It's good to see people considering where things are going, and I was really pleased to see that this group down here were actually looking at where they wanted to put their leaves before they actually glued them down. That's a good method, because they could see they were working out their composition before they actually glued things down. I mean, in a way, that was almost like the way you put those laminate landscapes back together again, wasn't it? The way you were thinking about where the bits and pieces should go. Right, what I'd like you to do, Year 7, is in your boxes you'll notice that there's several key words, and all of these are the words that we've actually had on the board already. Now what I'd like you to do is to use those words and evaluate whether you've achieved those aspects in your mixed media piece. So if you look at them, you've got all those words, you've got scale, you've got colour depth, you've got background, foreground. Have a look through those words and discuss in your groups for about 3 minutes as to where they should go on the painting. Okay, so you've got 3 minutes now to achieve that task. And you can blue tack them on as well. You know what blue tack?
I think the area it's overlapping is there because you've got the bigger one overlapping the small ones.
And scale could go there because it's getting bigger, the pictures here, and it goes to smaller and it's got more detail there.
It goes back to the background.
I think it's important that the lesson objective that we brought up at the beginning of the lesson is actually linked to the end as well, because obviously it gives me a chance to evaluate the pupils' learning. I can see what they've actually achieved, and it's good for them because they get a sense of achievement from it as well. Rather than just seeing an unfinished piece of work, they can see areas they can work on and that they can improve. Okay, class, right, so you've finished that activity. Jada, would your group like to talk about their work?
We've done overlapping there because the trees are overlapping each other, and we've done the foreground there because we've got all different sizes of tissue paper to create the effect of grass. We haven't achieved colour depth yet because we haven't got enough shades of green, but next week we're going to try and put more darker colours in like the painter's done in his picture.
You've got these lovely bright colours in the foreground, lovely detail in the front there, and you've got those nice leaves overlapping. What colours are you going to use in the background?
I think we're going to use more darker shades of greens in the background.
Good. And how do you think you could achieve a kind of blurry effect? What would you do? Because you've got these lovely crisp shapes at the front, and you've obviously used your scissors, you've cut them very nicely. How would you get a blurry effect in the background? What would you do?
We could draw the leaves in and use chalk pastels to smudge the colours together.
That's lovely. So they could use a smudging technique, couldn't they, to get a more blurry effect in the background. I was just going to say, there's one other thing they could perhaps do as well, is they could perhaps tear the papers instead of cutting them in such neat lines as well. So there's 2 techniques that you could use next week when you're actually doing your piece of work. You could smudge, like Jada said, to make it look a bit more blurry, or you could rip and tear the paper to make it also have a rough texture. Excellent, you've done a really good job there. You can bring all of this information with you next week and we can just get straight started with these pieces of work. Now what I think would be a good idea is if we leave the words stuck on the paper, because we've obviously already decided where these bits go and what amendments we can make for next week. So what I'd like us to do is just to put all the bits and pieces back in our trays and start to pack away. Thank you. It's very difficult to stop the pupils when they're working on something. They've only had 50 minutes, they're desperate to finish it off, and they keep going, and you just have to say, right, that's it, stop there. And that's why it's quite good to have a plenary at the end of the lesson, because it stops it. They get a chance to evaluate what they've done, and they can see that there's ways they can improve their work, and they can get their minds refreshed and ready for next week's activity.